Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Hey everyone, it's Nate. Happy New Year. I hope you're well. I know I've been a bit quiet. I've been resting a bit. Oh man, the last half of 2025 was manic. Lots of travel, lots of interviews, podcasts, lots of vinyl shops and going to record shows. Don't get me wrong, I love it all, but it took a lot out of me. I'm getting old. I need to manage myself a bit differently, but I'm back now, a little wiser, and ready to kick off 2026 with this interview. A great conversation I had with Monte A Melnick. Now, Monte was a trusted confidant of the Ramones, their tour manager for over 2,200 shows. He was a friend, family really. He was a psychologist, diplomat, and survivor of the Ramones' musical hurricane. He held on to a lot of promotional stuff and memorabilia over the years, which we talk about today. We discuss rare recordings. We talk about things like the Dee Dee King solo album, that amazing Simpsons episode with the Ramones serenading Mr. Burns, the journey of the Ramones going from truly just being highly revolted by the music industry to being adored by the world. And of course, it all comes together with Monte's book, On the Road with the Ramones, the bonus edition. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. Find this book. It's an amazing and fun read. And it's written by the people that were there, the band and the people in their orbit. So On the Road with the Ramones by Monte A Melnick. Pick up a copy today. And real quick, if you like the Ramones and that ilk, we have other episodes of the Vinyl Guide podcast you can enjoy for free anytime, such as episode 110 with Ramones engineer and producer Ed Stasium. We've had CJ Ramone on a few times, episodes 73 and 449. We talked to Chris Ashford of What Records on the early days of the Germs. That's episode 508. Ed Culver, photographer of many LA punk bands, episode 500. Now we had on Aussie music legend James Baker of The Victims, The Scientists, The Beasts of Bourbon, Hoodoo Gurus, and more, episode 479, and literally hundreds more episodes, all free. You could listen to them anytime. Just follow the Vinyl Guide in your podcast app. Scroll, listen, and enjoy. And with that, let's get into the conversation with Mr. Monte A Melnick, being on the road with the Ramones.
Hello.
Mr. Monte. Hey, I got to tell you, I am so looking forward to this conversation. I'm such a Ramones fan, and your book, this On the Road with the Ramones.
What the bonus edition?
This is the bonus edition? What's the bonus? What's the extra stuff in it?
I added 40 more pages in the back.
Oh, okay. All right. It's beautiful. It's, it's full color. It's a real pleasant. It's not just like text, and pictures in the middle. This is like a full interactive thing.
That's why I was lucky with the publisher. You know, as you said, most books are text, picture in the middle, but they let me put in, posters and tour passes and colored behind the text. And they did the art director was really terrific on the book.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
It's beautiful, and it is a great read. It's all meat, no bone, and well done on this. Thank you very much. For anyone looking to get into the Ramones, again, this is just a great way to kind of introduce yourself to a lot of stuff and see a lot of memorabilia and whatnot while you do it.
I was looking over your podcast. I'm honored to be. I mean, you interview some unbelievable, great people there. I mean, the top of the line there. I'm happy to join your podcast.
Well, feeling is absolutely mutual, man. And this book, again, proves you've got the scars over many years here. Now, the book covers pretty much each member of the Ramones, pretty much from birth till death. And you were there from the very beginning.
Very much.
Yeah. Now, with each member so different, I guess, what was your kind of approach? What do you think was your secret that made you so trusted to each member of the band?
Well, you had to be a diplomat. You had to be kind of like a babysitter, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, mother, a father. Just listen and understand, and not fight with them or argue or anything. Just get along. Try to get along well.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, to be able to do it, especially with those guys, I mean, that's expert level stuff. I don't think you went into it with a psychology degree or anything.
Another thing to point out, I was a tour manager basically, but I had to deal with the crazy band, but also crazy crews over the years. I've doubled the amount of nutty people, crews and pub and promoters and record companies and crazy people at venues and a lot of different people you have to deal with.
Was there a lot of stuff that you couldn't put in this book? I mean, this book was only, I imagine you probably could have written several volumes of it, but what are some things that you wanted to put in this book, but just weren't able to?
Well, I pretty much covered a lot of things. I actually I didn't want to do the book when Joey was alive, basically, because certain things sit in there that, I was very good friends with Joey and, it was uncomfortable talking about stuff like that. Other people talking about his problems and stuff like that. So that's the only thing I had to wait around till he unfortunately passed away, and I got an opportunity to do the book, so I went with it.
Okay, were you doing this all along the way? Because you use interviews from way back in the day. I imagine these were quotes that you kind of grabbed and held.
Yeah, I got to give credit to my good Frank Meyer. When I was first approached to do the book, I said, I'm not a writer. They said, okay, we'll get you a ghostwriter, And I came up with a few people, and Frank came along, and he was terrific, a musician and a huge Ramones fan, and he's still out there playing with Fear and Street Walking Cheetahs and Dick Manitoba and producing, and he's a really great guy. So I gave him a co-author of the book, because otherwise it would have just been me and with a ghostwriter. But Frank did such a great job. No, we put together we did a lot of interviews, and we put together a lot of old stuff too.
Yeah. Because it's not just a single narrative. There's a book, I think, on the history of Saturday Night Live. I think it's Live from New York. And it's kind of written in a similar way to where you use quotes from each individual person. It'll say like Chevy Chase and a short paragraph from them and, them telling the story. And that's kind of what you have here, yeah?
It's an oral history, they call it, basically. Right. Oral history type of book. It's my stuff in there, and then we talked to a lot of people and got interviews with a lot of people, and use a lot of old interviews too, and put it all together.
In terms of, and we'll get back to the book here, because again, I think it's fascinating, and just the whole way that you went about it, I think makes it a really good read. Some of the things that kind of popped out along the way. Today we see the reviews, especially those first three Ramones albums, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. But I kind of take it that that's not always the way it was. Is that fair?
I mean, the reviews now compared to the reviews.
Yeah.
You see some of the reviews that came out when the first couple of albums came out. What is this crap? Horrible. Can't listen to this anymore. I was listening to the interview you did with Ed Station when Vince Scelsa breaks a record. He first heard broke the record. Yeah. But then later on, he became a big fan. That's the problem with the Ramones. When they first came out, nobody understood what they were doing, and they just, discounted the whole thing. Just forget about it. Also, the Sex Pistols were on the same time, so everybody thought the Ramones were kind of saying with the Sex Pistol crappy, doing crazy stuff in the radio stations and anarchy and spitting and blah blah blah, the horrible stuff. Just the Ramones got lumped along with that. So that's what affected their all of the different viewers and as you talk with Ed, none of the radio play got back then. The radio stations wouldn't touch them because they felt that like the Sex Pistols, they'd come into the station and destroy the station or something. Punk rockers,
right, too dangerous.
Yeah.
So was there a time early on, because that's sort of, I guess feedback, lack of a better word, backlash maybe. Was there a point where the Ramones kind of maybe have thought about calling it quits?
No, they never thought about calling it quits. Never, ever. The only thing they thought about over the years, I mean, they used the Tommy and Ed and then Phil, and then they started thinking, let's get a producer to get us on the radio. Right. They kept on going to different Graham Gouldman and John Beauvoir, et cetera, down the line. And try to, maybe they can get us to hit on the radio. So they kept on trying at it. They knew they had something going. That's why they kept together for, 20 something years.
Yeah,
Johnny and Joey, basically,
But in the face of that adversity, they never shook or anything.
Well, they got frustrated, But then they said, well, let's try something else. If this is not working, let's try something else. It was very frustrating. Also, another thing that was frustrating, all these giant bands, Talking Heads, B-52s, opened up for the Ramones. Blondie, they all opened up for the Ramones. The Ramones headlined a lot of those shows in CBGBs and other places. And all of a sudden, they started passing the Ramones. The Ramones are getting, they're getting frustrated. That was very frustrating to see that happen. They were friends with all the people, but these other bands were like shooting up into the atmosphere there.
Yeah. It seems like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was only in the last few years that they started getting really the respect of the music industry, what they should have had in the first place.
Well, my take on that is basically when the Ramones came out, all these kids were listening to them, and they formed, the Ramones were kind of like the Johnny Appleseeds. They would, Johnny Appleseed planted apples all over this. The Ramones would go out to all these cities, small cities, big cities, all overseas, play, and then these kids would see them, and then they would form bands. Mm-hmm. All these being Metallica, Soundgarden, U2, Pearl Jam. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole thing is that I've lost my track of thought.
The frustration, because look, I know there's a lot of artists. Even you can go back to painters of the 17th century that weren't famous or didn't get recognized in their time, but they weren't constantly getting spat at.
Here's what I wanted to continue before my brain freezes. So then all these kids that grew up with the Ramones all of a sudden got into positions later on to put them into movie soundtracks, commercials, played them on the radio. They were DJs. So all of a sudden these kids, that's why they become bigger now than they were when they were around. Basically, the four originals were around. Now they're getting all this play and stuff because these kids were listening to them and they became big. They grew up and got into positions where they started putting them into stuff, which they couldn't get when they were back there. They couldn't get the commercials. They couldn't get on the radio. They couldn't get the movie soundtracks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now they are. And that's why they're huge now. They're huge.
Yeah. That's interesting because I guess thinking about it, in the late 70s, the music industry was really controlled by the companies, the corporations that really didn't understand. The kids were getting it. And then you take it, fast forward to the late 90s, you got, like you say, Pearl Jam and these different bands who were fans. The industry was much more influenced by the artists at that point, which were able to then recognize Ramones. Is that kind of a fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, one thing that I understood, I'd love your feedback on this. Initially, the Ramones, the debut, the album cover, was designed, or the concept was originally similar to the Meet the Beatles cover.
Actually, that cover, the first cover done by Roberta Bailey, terrific photographer, by the way, was done for Punk magazine. They shot the cover. They shot a lot of stuff for Punk magazine. And Ramones saw it and they said, "We liked it. We're taking it. We're going to use it." So it wasn't really a cover shot. It was for Punk magazine, and then they loved the shot and they used it for the cover.
Oh, okay. I heard a story where Danny Fields had some pictures of them taken in a very similar kind of approach to the Meet the Beatles cover. Do you remember that? Do you know if the pictures exist?
Well, that album he shot, what's the second? Leave Home, Road to Ruin. Road to Ruin, is it? That's the back. That's shot by Danny Fields.
Right.
And back of CBGB. It's kind of almost.
Well, the Road to Ruin's the cartoon.
No. Yeah. No, it's Rocket to Russia. Rocket to Russia. Look at that. They're sending against the back. That's actually the back of CBGB's.
Yeah.
That Danny Fields took a picture, and they're kind of a little bit like the first cover, the four Ramones lined up black and white.
Right.
Done by Danny Fields. So.
Okay. Because I just understood that there was a photo session that made it look like it was kind of a Meet the Beatles type.
I've heard that before, but I wasn't involved in that particular talk, but I've heard that before.
And the Rocket to Russia cover, it seems to be a very similar, almost a callback to the debut.
That's what I said, that Danny Fields shot that actually in the back of CBGB's. There's a little brick wall there too and stuff like that. And he wanted to capture that first feeling of the first photo.
Well, was that kind of a response also to the Leave Home cover? Was the band happy with Leave Home with the cover?
No, they weren't happy with that. That was shot on the rooftop somewhere in the Wall Street district. It's not the greatest cover they have. A lot of the best covers are shot by George DeBose, good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He shot a lot of great covers. There's a couple of stories about that if you want to talk about some of those covers. Interesting stories on that.
Yeah, you cover him pretty well in the book. Apparently, he only had an hour of the band's time on most of those covers.
Well, that's why the band liked him, especially Johnny. Johnny just didn't like taking photos sessions, didn't like talking a long time with people, and recording fast. I mean, the first albums went really fast and record fast. And so he loved George. That's why he kept on George back, because George shot fast,
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't painful for him,
He seemed to be a man with little patience there, Johnny.
He was.
So we talk here a lot about the records and memorabilia. I see you got the gold records behind you there. What sort of memorabilia do you still have of early days?
Well, the funny thing about that is I was lucky that I put a lot of stuff away in a room and just forgot about it. Tour passes and itineraries and posters and stuff like that. And I was almost going to throw out. One of my old girlfriends, Shira, said, "Dad, don't throw that stuff out." I didn't know how valuable it was. In 2016, there was a big exhibit at the Queen's Museum about the Ramones. So I had like 170 Ramones pieces in it. It was terrific, posters and passes and tour itineraries, and all that stuff became very valuable. That was supposed to go on tour, kind of like the Bowie exhibit toured the world. It went to the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles first, but then the factions of the Ramones. I don't know if you know about this, the crazy Ramones factions that are going on now with the two sides. They fight against each other a lot, and they couldn't continue the exhibit on. So I got all my stuff back, and I had like 14, 15 auctions. So it was kind of like my pension from the Ramones. Right. They didn't give me a gold watch, but luckily I saved all these things. Who knew like a tour poster or a little pass was very valuable, after later on in the years,
Mm-hmm. What was the one or two of the big items from those auctions?
A lot of signed autographs and posters of the original, like 70s, late 70s, with Tommy on them. With the posters, the signatures are very important to have on it.
Okay.
The early signatures, with Tommy on it, those are very valuable. The posters and photographs and stuff like that. It was very valuable.
They didn't strike me as a band who saved a lot of stuff. You were kind of was that your collection is kind of the biggest?
I don't think they did. No, I don't think. I always after every show though, I would go and get posters. I would make sure to get posters after every single show and give them out to everybody and keep one for myself and stuff like that. So I know I gave them posters. I don't think they kept basically a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been to the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas?
No, I haven't. Have you been there?
Yeah. They've got some great stuff. In fact, I'll flick you over a video I took, and there's a whole Ramones section. Fat Mike and I talked about. There's also the Ramones Museum in Berlin.
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing about it is you'd think anywhere in the world, there'd be New York, there'd be a Ramones Museum, but this guy Flo, huge Ramones fan with a big collection, opened up a museum in Berlin many years ago, and he reopened it now, and it's really amazing to see all that stuff. I was over there when my book came out in German. Did a little event way back then with Arturo and Danny Fields when my book came out a long time ago, and he does a great job in the museum there.
Yeah, he's just a fan. The reason it's in Berlin is just because there's a super fan.
He still posts on the Ramones Museum on Instagram. A lot of posts every day. He posts about the Ramones, different
Far
Ramones Museum on Instagram is really nice.
Now, you guys were in Germany when the Berlin Wall came down. Is that right?
Yes. 1989. So we were there, and the promoter, a guy named Skumak now manages Rammstein, by the way, who opened up for the Ramones in Germany.
Of course.
That's another thing. They're mega now. And I mean, unbelievable how big they are. They got their first break opening up for the Ramones way back then. That's another thing. he went to the hardware store and got us hammers and chisels, brought us to the wall, and we went to the wall to chop down pieces of the wall. As it was, the wall was still up, but there was holes in it and stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm telling you, that concrete I have little pieces of it in my house. I got a bunch of it. I would give it out as presents. That concrete was really hard, unbelievable hard. And there was holes in the wall. And these East German guards running around the side selling stuff, like CJ, bought a belt buckle through the wall there, But to get into Berlin, before that, there was one road to get in. You couldn't get in, and then you get there and
Checkpoint Charlie, is that right?
Yeah. Well, that's inside. That's the Checkpoint Charlie between East and West Berlin. But to get to Berlin, you had to drive on this one road, 100 miles into East Berlin, because Berlin was in the middle of East Berlin, So you couldn't get off the road, and there was tanks and stuff along the road and stuff like that. When you get into Berlin, then the wall was there, and you couldn't even approach the wall. It's like machine guns on the wall. You get closer, they would aim the machine guns at you. The next time we came back, we played there a few times and came back in '89. The wall was coming down, it was still mostly up with holes in it. We're chopping down pieces of the wall and CJ buying stuff through the wall and stuff like that. The year after that, we came back, the wall's gone, and we actually played a little venue in East Germany. So we had the little evolution of what it was like. It was really suppressive being in there during the wall time, when East Berlin was, you couldn't approach the wall. There were machine guns and stuff like that. It was crazy.
Far out.
But then coming back, and it was gone after a number of years, and we played East Germany.
Yeah. Now that land is probably some of the most valuable land in the world.
Yeah.
Did Ramones ever meet or spend time with any Beatles?
No, not that I know. But you know how the Ramones got their name. It's in the book. Yeah. Dee Dee one day, he saw an article that Paul checked into a hotel under Paul Ramone. Mm-hmm. And Dee Dee said, let's name ourselves the Ramones. They said, okay. And then they decided to name everybody Ramone after that, Joey was Jeffrey Hyman, so he had to change. Jeffrey Ramone didn't sound good. He didn't so he said Joey Ramone. And Tommy was good. And Johnny was good. Dee Dee was good.
Yeah.
But in the early years, that was a problem with them because nobody understood who they were, number one. And second, they thought either they were all brothers or they were some Spanish band or something, Because that's a story with Danny Fields. Lisa Robinson from a magazine that she wrote for told Danny, go check this group out, the Ramones. And Danny said, I don't want to see no Spanish cha-cha band. I'm not going down there. But he finally went down there and fell in love with the band. But that was his initial, take with the name, Ramones. That was a problem at the beginning.
Were there other record labels that were vying for the band?
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. Well, the thing about that is the first managers of the band was Danny Fields and Linda Stein.
Mm-hmm.
Stein's wife. So he's, right away, I'm not sure if any other record companies approached him, but Seymour was right there from the beginning because of Linda,
Yeah. Was that record contract unfair, unduly weighted? Because it seems like a conflict of interest to have the label head, his wife, managing the band.
From what I can gather, I wasn't involved in the technical aspects of the contracts. They never said anything to me about that, but I doubt it.
Okay.
Because later on, Gary Kerfurst, he took over the managing the band. He's later on after he started his own Radioactive Records, and they signed to his label. So that was then at that time people thought that was going to be a problem, but he put out the last couple albums on Radioactive Records, and he was the manager of the band. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could get away with that,
I also understand that there was a potential deal with Epitaph around that time. What do you know about that? Yeah,
I think Epitaph did make some forays into wanting to get the group, but that never happened. The Ramones just stayed with what they were doing with, they were happy with what they were doing right now. Mm-hmm. Back then,
Yeah. In the early days, what was the Ramones merch like? Did they have any merch in the first few years?
Well, here's the story on the great Arturo Vega. I mean, he was there from the beginning, like myself, to the end, and he unfortunately passed away. I'm probably the only one left that was there from the beginning of the Ramones to the end of the Ramones, basically, early on the Ramones. Early on, we had a skeleton. Not very many people we could take on the road. So Arturo said, "Look," and he's a huge fan. He wanted to come along anyhow. So he said, "Look, I'll print up some T-shirts." He had a nice loft, and he was able to silk screen and hang them up on his pipes in his loft there. So he printed up a bunch of T-shirts, came on the road, and that paid his way early on. Eventually, he got on the payroll and took off from there. And they realized that there's something with the merchandising. I don't think back then people were selling very many T-shirts and stuff at the venues, early mid-'70s. I'm not sure, small groups and like that. So so he started printing up the shirts and designing the shirts and selling the shirts. And that was a big part of, because they weren't making a lot of money selling records and stuff like that. Basically, they were touring, making money touring, and selling merchandise. And the big seller was T-shirts on the road for them. I wish I got a piece of that.
So the badge, the eagle, the logo, was that Arturo created?
Yes, Arturo. Here's another story. So early on, we're in Washington D.C. and originally he had shirts. I think I point out in my book that had the Ramones and a weird eagle, because he grew up. He's a Mexican, and on the Mexican flag is an eagle. And if you look at the back of the first Ramones album, there's a belt buckle with a hand. That's Arturo's hand and belt buckle with an eagle on it. So he loved eagles, So the original first shirt had the Ramones with that crazy looking eagle on it. But one day we were in Washington D.C. and he saw the presidential seal of the United States and looked at it and said, "Wow, there's something going on here." And he developed that whole thing. He put an olive branch, instead of the olive branch, he put an apple branch. And the eagle's holding arrows, and now he's holding a baseball bat, because the Ramones loved, Johnny was a baseball fan, and there's a beat on the brow with a baseball bat was one of the songs. And American, that's American. Mm-hmm. And the wonderful thing about it is, around the circumference, he put the names of the people in the band, which was great, because when one left, they just plug and play the next one in. So that fit in. That was a brilliant idea, putting the names in a circle like that. And he took that off the Great Seal of the United States, presidential seal. Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea.
Yeah. There's a couple different versions of that. I think one with "Hey Ho, Let's Go," one with "Look Out Below."
Well, if the original was "Look Out Below,"
mm-hmm.
and then Blitzkrieg Bop became so popular, he put in "Hey Ho, Let's Go" on the bottom.
Right.
Oh. And if you look, there's a picture of him in my book there. On his back, he's got the whole tattoo, the whole logo, full-size back of the lead tattooed on his back.
That's Arturo's back.
That's Arturo's back.
Okay.
He was such a great big fan, and he loved to design that. And it says "E Pluribus Unum" on the top. I don't know why he put that on there. It has nothing to do with the Ramones. That's,
I saw that picture. I thought that was just a super fan. I didn't know that was Arturo.
No, that's Arturo. And the funny thing about it is, put Artie, Johnny, Joey, Dee Dee. He put his name in there, and Marky saw it and got pissed off at Arturo. So you wouldn't put my name out there. That's just my back. I'll put off what I want on my back. Marky actually got upset about that. But that's dedication. That's how dedicated he was. He was a super dedicated guy. Yeah. A great artist, terrific lighting director, and he did all the merchandising.
So you
designed all the.
You and Arturo were there from kind of day one, yeah? Did you saw pretty much every show the Ramones did?
I missed a few in the beginning, in the early years. I'd say I was there for like 2,200 shows, maybe 40 shows I wasn't around for, because they were doing things I wasn't involved in. Because I started doing sound for them initially in the studio. And then they started playing out, and they said, "You come along, do some sound for us." I was the first sound man in the early years for them.
And you went to school with them, or with John?
Well, that's how that's how I got involved with them. Was Tommy. I grew up with Tommy. One day I was like driving my bike. I was junior high school. I was riding my bike around Forest Hills High School and bumped into Tommy. And we realized we're in junior high school together in the same class. So we became very good friends. And then we went on to same high school, Forest Hills High School, where Johnny, Dee Dee, Joey all went there too.
Mm-hmm.
I first saw the first band, it's the Tangerine Puppets, in 1966. They played a talent show at Forest Hills High School. That's when I first saw them. And Johnny was on bass, and Dee Dee and Tommy was playing guitar, and they were in a band together. But I was very good friends with Tommy, and after that, I was in several bands with Tommy before the Ramones.
Mm-hmm.
You saw in the book there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You were also part of 30 Days Out as well?
Yeah. Well, I got together. I was in a band with Tommy, Triad. It was like kind of like a power trio, like Cream and Jimi Hendrix. That fell apart. But Tommy was working he was always wanted to do recording engineer stuff, recording engineer, working in studios. He was working with a good friend, Jack Malkin, who had a recording studio. He was working with him, and then he was putting together a band. And he initially was looking for a bass player because I was playing bass at the time, and he almost had Tommy in the band, but they didn't want there was too many guitar players. So I joined the band. 1971, 72, we put 2 albums on Warner Reprise. Mm-hmm. And we toured a little bit. It was a country rock band. The funny thing about that, I went from like a power trio tape to country rock band. And that was around for a couple of years. We opened up with the Beach Boys, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and Tom Rush, and a couple other people. And then when that broke up, I got back together with Tommy, and we formed another group called Butch, was like a glam rock band. Like glam rock was phasing out at the time. And in that band, I was with Jeff Salen, who was in Tough Darts. He played guitar for Tough Darts, but John Montgomery was a singer. Mm-hmm. But we had a band together. It was like glam rock was phasing in, phasing out at the time. And then I got involved with Tommy in the rehearsal studio. One day, my cousin was installing locks on an empty loft in the city, and the woman was there and said, "Do you know anybody interested helping me build a rehearsal recording studio?" Blondie rehearsed there, the Dolls rehearsed there and stuff. Mm-hmm. 1974, March 30th, 1974 was the first time that 3-piece group played in March. And then, and Dee Dee was having trouble singing and playing bass, and Tommy was there. He just wanted to produce the band. He didn't want to be in the band. Mm-hmm. You know the story, it goes behind. And he heard Joey had a good voice. He pulled him out the drums, and they started looking for drummers. But Tommy was a guitar player, but he was a great musician, So he would sit down on the drums to try to show these drummers. At that time, the Ramones were so raw, it was unbelievable. I don't know if you saw any of the early videos of them and CBGBs. They were just like, they were very raw and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so none of the drummers could understand what they were doing. Tom would try to sit down and play along with them. This is what I want you to do. But none of them could understand. So he joined the group. And in August that year, that was the first time they played CBGBs as a 4-piece. Over 50 years ago.
Did they ever play Mercer Arts Center before it collapsed?
No, but here's the funny thing about it is Tommy and I in the band Butch played Mercer Arts Center the day before it fell down.
Okay.
We played there under Butch, and Johnny saw us there, and he would always give Tommy a hard time. He said, "Well, Monty was only a good part of that band, Tommy, He was giving a little zets to Tommy, But that was a big venue back then. They never played it because the place fell down a long time before they got together.
Oh, okay. So you guys probably contributed. Your sound waves probably weakened the structure.
Yeah, I think we did.
So Ramones largely played CBGBs the first years. Yeah, they did.
Between CBGBs and Performance Studios. They played CBs about over 70 times over the early years there, and Performance Studios quite a bit. And they're little by little, they started getting little jobs outside the city, in Boston and Connecticut stuff, and little by little.
So in the same way that Tommy needed to take over the drums because there was that vision of what the sound should be like, they needed someone like yourself to give them a consistent mix in the early
years. In the early years, the funny thing about Well, the Ramones were very into sound and stuff. People think, yeah, they would just play three chords and bang it out and it's a bunch of noise. No, those early years, most of the clubs had really crappy sound systems, really junky, crappy sound systems. So one of the first monies they made, they actually bought a sound system, PA, whole PA, and I was involved with that, schlepping in, schlepping out, and working the first couple of years doing the sound, and then it decided to move up and get a professional sound guy and professional monitor guy, and then I moved up into working with the road crew into road manager and tour manager eventually later on. So I kind of phased out of that because they got really professional. I worked my way up as they were working on the instruments. I was working my way on a soundboard too. But I understood them in the beginning. They weren't the hardest band to mix, I'll tell you that. It's very simple stuff. But I was actually on the soundboard of '77, that live album, The Rainbow.
Okay.
New Year's Eve.
Okay.
I was on the soundboard for that.
Did you have much to do with the studio work at all? Were you in the studio with them much? Well,
the only thing, I made sure the crew was there, the equipment was there, and I hung out as much as I could. I wasn't involved in, in this control room. Went in and out. But
yeah.
I was hanging around mostly, getting the equipment there and the crew there and stuff like that, and the band there, stuff like that.
Phil Spector never waved a gun at you or anything.
No, they did threaten me. They wanted to leave one time, and he said, "No, you're not going to leave here." And I was driving him around in the van. He comes in, "Monty, give me the keys to the van. Give me the keys to the van." He's like really aggressive towards me. He didn't pull out a gun or anything. He had guns on him. He took a gun and put it on a console a couple of times. He never pulled the gun out, but he was very aggressive. We got out of there. And another thing, we went to visit him in his house a couple of times. And to get in and out of his house, he not only had to be let in with a key, but let out with a key. So he kept us up there quite a long time, more time than we wanted to spend, up there listening to his sounds, a couple of songs, and he played like some horror movie over and over again. And he was pretty wild to work with, let me tell you. I'm sure you got those stories from Ed there. It was pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, there was that one story of Ramones being held hostage almost for 6 or 8 hours or something like that. There are various views on that. I think Markey came out and said that didn't happen. So, but your recollections it did.
We were held up at his house, and then that famous couple times in the house. We went back, but one time we went there, like Herman Munster was a friend of Phil. He was hanging out with us.
Fred Gwynn?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. The Grandpa Munster.
Oh, yeah. Al
Lewis. Al Lewis, yeah. He was up there as a friend. It was pretty wild walking into the house there with him there. But in his studio, he tried to keep us there. As I said, there was one time we just wanted to leave, and he wouldn't let. He said, "Give me the keys and stuff." But we got out of there. And that, I think the one time we're talking about is that when at Rock and Roll High School, the chord that he kept Johnny and Ed there. It was like a couple hours. Johnny said it was like 10 hours, but it was actually like 2 hours. But that was a long time, It was like painful, painful.
The same chord over and over for
over and over
8 hours.
Over. It was like 2 hours, but it felt like Johnny felt like it was 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Now, you got fed up with him.
You write in the book, Bruce Springsteen wrote the song "Hungry Heart" for the Ramones. Do you know if they ever gave it a go, or did they just reject it immediately?
No, unfortunately, they didn't. We were playing in Asbury Park, a really small club, like back late 70s or something. And I put the band on stage and I walked back by the bar. And I see Springsteen there. He was fairly well known at the time. And I figured he'd watch a couple of songs and leave, Bruce Springsteen, Ramones. So after the set's over, I walked over and I said, "You want to come back and meet the band?" He said, "Yeah, I'd love to meet the band." And I brought him back, and Joey said, because he had written that song for Patti Smith, "Because Tonight," that's the name of it, right?
Yep.
And Joey said, "Why don't you write a song for us?" He said, "Okay," And he actually wrote "Hungry Heart" for the Ramones, but when he never got through to them where they could do it, because at the time, Bruce Springsteen's manager said, "You're not going to give us away. You can't give it away." So it never got to a point where we could really record it or do anything with it. But I think they realized he did write. Well, later on, they realized he wrote the song for them because he wrote it in a couple of his anthologies or whatever, that he did write the song for them. you know?
So they didn't know till years later.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I would have loved to have heard a demo of that.
Yeah, that would have been interesting, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So people online have done like versions of it, like if Ramones did the song, what would it sound like? And yeah, yeah. What's your recollection of the song Chinese Rocks?
As far as what goes.
Well, the writing of it, because it seems that the lines seem to blur between Dee Dee and Johnny Thunders. Yeah.
I think Dee Dee had the most hand into it, you know. They were both heavily into heroin and stuff, so we know where that came from, that song, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dee Dee had the most part to writing it.
All right. Richard Hell says he wrote a few lyrics as well, and it seems very murky between, and depending on which record you have, the credits are a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or involvement on the Dee Dee King rap record?
Well, at the time, Dee Dee was kind of phasing out. He was not happy with what he was doing. He wanted to branch out. He's really into rap music, you know. So the Ramones at the time said, you know, okay, Dee Dee, you want to do it? Go ahead, do your stuff, and you know, it's a side project, and you know, still stay in the Ramones. And so he went off and did that. They really wanted to take it to a different level, which it never got to. A funny story where we were going to Washington, D.C., flying down for a gig, Ramones gig, and he shows up at the airport in like a jumpsuit and gold chains. And Johnny said, what the hell are you doing? You're in the Ramones. You're not in a rap group. You know? So he got on Dee Dee's case there. But, you know, we thought that he would just, you know, take that and be happy with that and still stay in the Ramones. But eventually just wanted to get, as he put it, out of the Ramones army, you know. Because those later shows, he was really into it, you know. You could tell by the live shows, he was like, he wasn't there, you know, unfortunately.
Right.
The good part about it is that he kept on writing for them later. So they got good CJ, which is like a young Ramones, and they had to kind of suck in their stomachs to keep up with him, which was great for the band. Because, you know, enlivened them. He was terrific. It's like a young Dee Dee. And then Dee Dee was still writing for them. So they had both good both worlds there. It was really nice, you know?
Yeah. That's, CJ did breathe that new life into him. And he played a lot faster, if I understand that right, as well.
I think over the years, they got faster and faster. Like Richie is really, really fast, you know? And, you know, when Mikey came in, it was, you know, wasn't as fast, but they started playing faster and faster. What did you think of Dee Dee's album?
It's pretty hard to listen to. I'll be honest.
It's interesting. Let's put it that way.
It's an artifact. It's something. I'm glad it exists because, you know, it's just so unique. But it's not something that I would listen to for enjoyment. It's more of a curiosity.
Yeah, it is. That's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually it was reissued a couple years ago for Record Store Day. There's been a lot of Ramones reissues, but I never expected that one to be reissued, quite frankly.
Record Store Day is terrific. A good friend of mine, Rick Johnson, is involved with Record Store Day,
yeah,
which is terrific now because that. Are you involved with that?
No,
Record Store?
not except to buying a lot of stuff.
You should get in touch with Rick. And he was a big fan of the Ramones. He went to over like 100 shows with the Ramones and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. He's helping me out now with a couple of ventures I'm doing.
Okay. Are you involved in things like the box sets and stuff that comes out on Record Store Day?
Well, yeah, you know, Ed calls me a couple of times and asks me about a few instances about things that he wrote in the liner notes and stuff like that.
Just making sure his memory's correct, that kind of thing?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Do you know if there's a lot of other tracks or outtakes or anything that exists? It seems like there's a lot of those have been made available up till now.
Yeah. They pretty mined a lot of that stuff, basically. I think most of it's out there. And Ed's tracked down a lot of it. There's an album that's out called Redux, Ramones Redux by Mark Urselli, that he gets a lot of different interesting groups. I can't remember the names of the groups on it. They're obscure, different type of groups. Guy from Sonic Youth, different groups. He just put out an album. I did the liner notes for that.
Okay.
Ramones Redux, it's called.
Okay. Do you recall the band getting test pressings or promotional items or things like that back in the day?
Well, promotional items. The first Ramones t-shirt, Sire Records, just had Ramones on it. That was interesting thing.
There was a promotional baseball bat, as I understand.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Also, the promotional letter opener with a knife on it and a letter opener.
Okay.
That's worth some money. I remember those. A little tequila bottle with the Ramones on it for the last album, because Adios Amigos. No, the baseball bat thing, that's a collector's item, the little baseball bats.
Yeah. You mentioned in the book as well, he was so into baseball, he would watch
huge
baseball even from the stage if there was a game.
Yeah, well, he would have the road crew guy, the monitor guy, he'd check in with him, see what the score was. He was a Yankees fan, but a huge baseball fan, and he collected 8x10s autographed. He had one of the biggest 8x10 autographed baseball collection of baseball players in the world, eventually over the years. Amazing collection. And then he'd sneak off into sometimes, so he like in Boston, the club's across from Fenway Park. He'd go over there and watch a game or something before the early game or something, or around the different Detroit or something. He'd try to catch games here and there when he could.
Yeah,
huge fan.
And occasionally have a TV like right next to the monitor so he could hear the band and still watch the game.
Well, yeah, it's more like he had the road crew checking on him. He'd check in with the road crew.
In between songs, what's the score?
Yeah. If you look on the cover of my book, he's wearing a Yankees t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
That cover was great. That was done by John Holmstrom, Punk magazine.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because when I was putting out the book, I was figuring, because I worked with 8 different Ramones over the years, 8 different Ramones, it was 4 at a time. But I was trying to figure out what to put on the cover, and I came up with this idea of me in the van there with all 8 Ramones. We're driving out of the city. If you look at the CBGs in the background, and there's the pinhead chasing after the van, and stuff flying off the van. There's Yoo-Hoo bottles and stuff like that. If you notice, Joey's reading Punk magazine.
Yeah.
John threw that in there. It was nice,
He drew that cover with Joey on the cover, original Punk magazine for back.
Yeah, one of the issues of Punk magazine, and he also did the Rocket to Russia.
The backside
of the Rocket to Russia, and all the cartoons in the middle of it, with John Holmstrom illustrating the songs, and later on, Arturo used a lot of those images for T-shirts, and I used a couple of them for tour passes too, for different tours. So if you look at the inside with all the different illustrations of the different songs, Sheena and all that stuff, and Holmstrom did all that. It was great. I'm happy to get him.
Yeah. Speaking of illustrations, what are your recollections around Ramones being on The Simpsons?
Well, that was a great honor.
Yeah. They had to purposely record that track, yeah?
Yeah. They went into a studio and did the thing. And I think they got jackets or something from the Simpsons and all that. And it's great being part of that history, Yeah. And I use that when people have birthdays. I send them that video. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Kill the Rolling Stones.
That's a good one, yeah.
So they were into The Simpsons when they got the request. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't seen as a hassle. It was seen as an honor.
No, they loved it.
Oh, excellent. Now, you mentioned also in the book, I think it may have been you that mentioned, Johnny wanted to keep the Ramones consistent and sounding the same, but it seemed like other members wanted to grow, perhaps try different directions. In your opinion, what do you think that would have looked like if Johnny wasn't so, controlling?
There was a few songs you could tell that but it was not Goldman put a bunch of stuff in there, and Spector put some violins on one of the Baby I Love You and stuff like that. Who knows? I think the Ramones staying in that kind of parameters was the best thing for them. But they in the different albums they kind of fluctuated with the little bits and pieces of stuff,
Did the record label or labels ever try to shape them in a way that they felt unnatural?
No. Seymour initially in the first thing, Blitzkrieg Bop, he didn't like the Nazi Shotzi's thing there. He tried to tell them not to do that. But they said, no, they're going to do it anyhow, And then the Carbona Not Glue thing, they were forced to take that off the album because they were afraid they're going to be. Record company said we got to take it off. They were afraid they're going to be sued, and they put Stina on. I think that's a collector's item if you have that.
Yeah.
With the carbone on it. Otherwise, they left them pretty much. They didn't bother with them with nitpicking on certain things, except a few things I pointed out there.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward, what do you think is the Ramones' legacy? What do you think when 100 years from now people think of the Ramones? What do you think that memory will be?
Well, I pointed out that I think their legacy was that when they were touring early years and they went over to all the different cities and countries, these kids could understand what they were doing. They didn't have to. You didn't have to be Eric Clapton on a guitar or Ginger Baker playing pit drums. You could put out a group with good, decent songs, and you could do it yourself. And that's why they became. I think that's their legacy. As I said, all these kids saw them as kids and became into bands. And the Lollapalooza tour, '96, when they finally got into Lollapalooza tour, which they couldn't get on years before that.
Mm-hmm.
It was Metallica, Soundgarden, Rancid, all these huge groups. And when they put the Ramones on stage, all these groups were all of a sudden on the side of the stage. I'm seeing that they're on the side of the stage, and they were huge Ramones fans. And they became very friendly with them. And they told the Ramones that because of them, we formed all these groups. And look at Bono wrote that song, "The Miracle of Joey Ramone." So I think that's the legacy of the Ramones, that what they put out touched a lot of young kids to inspire them to move on into the music business.
And for you, what is your favorite memory? I guess the bittersweet moment that you go back to when you think about the good times.
It's hard because 20 years is so many different things. I'm happy it was written into a song. You know which one?
I don't know which one, but I know there was that lyric about Monte. Yeah.
The end of the century all the way. So that's, people ask me, what's your favorite Ramones song? I said, I like a lot of Ramones songs, but that has to be my favorite. Monte's driving me crazy. It's like being in the Navy. That's one of my favorite things. I mean, just touring the world, getting to see the world with a group like the Ramones, and they built it up and up and up, so they became a higher standard in different cities. So it wasn't just like the early years was crappy clubs, but the later years was better, venues, festivals and stuff like that. And seeing the world, that was the benefit of the whole thing. I really enjoyed that. I wouldn't have stuck around for 20 years if I didn't like that.
I know there's a lot of competitiveness and friction within the band. Is there a memory that you have where everyone was just getting along, everyone was just right on the same side, and it was just a big moment?
Well, I say that the 1977, that live "It's Alive" album, they were like at the peak then at that time. That's one of my fondest memories, me being at the soundboard, seeing that whole thing, and then it's on the. You can see it on video and hear it on live. It's like a live moment captured. They were great. That's that particular aspect, that the first four, the original four. Well, over the years, there was moments with the other band members, Marky and CJ and Richie and all that. Of course, Clemmy Ramone was. They named him Elvis because they didn't want to call him Clemmy Ramone.
Yeah.
That was a joke. But that's why I wrote a book. There's lots of memories in there. That's too many to really just say pick out one or two.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ramones books. I really, really enjoyed yours, and I can't recommend this book enough. On the Road with the Ramones, by Monte A Melnick and Frank Meyer. Again, it's a beautiful book. It's color throughout. You can just pick it up and flip through and just read little paragraphs here or there, or go from beginning to end. And it's told by the voices that were there at the time. So again, a great place to start for new and old fans of the Ramones. Again, Monte, thank you so much for coming on the Vinyl Guide, mate.
I appreciate it a lot.
All right, lovely gentleman, that Monte A Melnick. Thanks for coming on the show, Monte. And the book, On the Road with the Ramones, phenomenal, by Monte A Melnick and Frank Meyer. I underplay Frank on this, but he's not been on the show. But Monte was, and it's a thick book. Here it is. It's in my hands. Lots of pages and full color. Can't recommend it enough. on the road with the Ramones, Monte A Melnick. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who's sharing these episodes on social media. Those of you who are leaving positive reviews in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I absolutely adore each and every one of you. And those of you who are helping support the podcast at patreon.com/vinyl guide. Well, I'm making a deal with God for a special place in heaven for each of you. Thank you so much for helping out. We'll be back shortly with the brand new episode. So until we talk next time, you all behave yourselves. And thanks again for listening to the Vinyl Guide podcast. Cheers.